Paul Glumaz, a longtime activist with Mr. LaRouche and the movement. Today is the 29th of January, and we got quite a mess on our hands unfolding right now. We have a president who is trying to work with Democrats on economic projects that are in their interest, in the interest of the constituents, and at the same time, that leadership of that Democratic Party has been involved in a massive all-out resistance to the president. You have an out-of-control special counsel, Robert Mueller, going further and further away from Russia, going after people who are intelligent and are close to Trump, like Roger Stone. They indicted Roger Stone the other day on charges that have nothing to do with Russia, but have to do with his intemperance in the manner in the way he dealt with the FBI and the Justice Department. So if you don't like the Justice Department and you don't kiss their rear end, and you call all the people that the Justice Department broke and turned against you, you call them whatever you want to do. That's intimidating witnesses. And if you have this attitude that's, screw you, I'm an American, I don't have to take this crap, well, then you're obstructing justice. You're not showing the proper attitude. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Lyndon LaRouche went through this many decades ago with Robert Mueller and the FBI and the Justice Department, and he stood up to him. We had people who had the option of going to jail for 76 years or taking a 2-month suspended sentence, and they took the 76 years because they said, we have principles. We believe in what we're doing. We're not whores. We're not weak people. And that's why our movement is still around, because we went through 10 years of all-out attack by the FBI and the Justice Department and state attorney generals and so forth and so on. And we survived it because we fought. People didn't cave in. Today, you have all these people that are weak. They don't have the strength. Donald Trump might have the strength. Roger Stone might have the strength, but these other people don't have the strength. But that's on one end. So you have the resist movement, you have the Mueller operation, and then you have the inside operation that's coagulating, you might say, around Vice-President Pence. And this is the operation that in the context of the other operations and the media plans at some point, I believe, and this is me speaking, not the movement, plan at some point to invoke the 25th Amendment and remove Trump and put in Pence. And off to war we go. Now we're already seeing the off to war part with the craziest thing of all things that you could possibly do, which is to recognize the head of the Legislative Assembly in Venezuela and not the elected president. And let me tell you something. Venezuela has very fair elections. Jimmy Carter says they have the fairest elections on the planet. Everything is registered. People have to match their fingerprints with the photo ID. It's all transparent. This is probably the most fairest election place and this whole thing is unfolding. And it's totally naked. There's no rule of law here. There's no process. There's no sovereignty. We decided we want this guy to be the interim president, and we just made him the interim. We just announced that he was the interim president, and now we want to cut off all of the revenues stream away from the current government, from their oil, and so forth and so on. And a whole bunch of other countries in Latin America who have since changed hands followed suit, but not Mexico, which is the most important country in Latin America, and not China and not Russia and so forth. So this is totally nuts. This is totally nuts. So why is Trump doing this? Why is Trump going along with this? Because his position is weak. His position is very weak. And the situation is, at the same time, you have the North Korean developments, which are moving forward. You have Japan and Russia, which is moving forward. You have, but the overarching thing of all, of the whole situation, is the relationship between the United States and China. Now, Bolton and Pompeo, whatever his name is, Pompeo, Pompeo, is out there saying that the whole operation against Venezuela is being done to stop China and Russia incursion into our hemisphere. Well, who said it was your hemisphere? Well, it's our hemisphere. And they're coming in. What are they coming in with? They're coming in with economic development, the Belt and Road. China plans to build a railway through Brazil into Bolivia to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. And they plan to develop the ports in the Caribbean. They're planning to develop the internal infrastructure of Latin America. Why? Because that's how you get goods in and that's how you get goods out. That's how you create wealth. That's how these countries can develop. And no. You can't have China come in like that. You can't have Russia come in like that, or China. So what Pompeo and Bolton are doing is and Pence too, they're declaring that China is, and the Belt and Road, China, Russia, and the Belt and Road is the number one enemy of our number one enemy, strategic enemy, number one. Now, who created the Belt and Road? Who designed it? Who put it forward? Back in the early 90s, the movement of Lyndon LaRouche. So basically, they're declaring the movement of Lyndon LaRouche to be their number one enemy because it's China adopted LaRouche's policies. Therefore, China's the number one enemy, and the policies are the number one enemy. That makes Lyndon LaRouche the number one enemy of Bolton, Pence, and Pompeo. So that's the situation. Now, what is going on here? There is these tariffs against China. China's now negotiating with the Trump administration. That's until March 1st. They're supposed to come up with a deal by March 1st. So what is this that's going on? If China's the enemy, why are you negotiating with China? So it doesn't make any sense. If China's the enemy, why are you working with North Korea? Why are we working with Why are we trying to stabilize that whole region? If China's the enemy, okay. So this is getting very confusing. This is getting very confusing. So what is Trump doing? Is he using Bolton and these guys to put pressure on China to get the best deal for a collapsing superpower? Or what's going on here? What's the issue? And I'll put it to you this way. The issue is what is going to replace the system that we're in. Because the financial system and the system that we're in does not work. It is coming down. It is already starting to come down. And who gets to make the rules? Right? Who gets to make the rules for the post-system system? Who gets to decide how countries are going to what currency countries are going to be in? Who gets to decide whether there's going to be a dollar or no dollar? Who gets to decide all of this? Okay, and when you have this kind of situation, then people want to go for the strategic resources. They want to go for some piece that's connected to reality, not the financial paper that's worthless. They're trying to convert things into reality. So there's a scramble for assets. There's a scramble for control, right? Control over assets. Like in Venezuela, they have assets. They have the world's, perhaps one of the largest oil deposit in the world in Venezuela. the second largest gold deposit. Rare earths. So who gets control? Who gets control of all of this? Who doesn't get control of it? Who dies? Who lives? How many? Which billionaires go bankrupt and which ones don't? All of this is, coming into this crisis, right? And then there's that negotiation with China, which is at the center of this whole thing. Is what agreement will Trump make with China? Will China give up and allow themselves to be taken over by this financial system? No, they won't. So what's the alternative? What's being discussed? And when and what's the alternative? And so this is the key. And the key is that the institution of the presidency of the United States plays a very important role in determining that. So it's in this context that Mikhail Geraci, the industry minister of Italy, who is a friend of ours, was on a TV show in China, an English TV show in China with The Economist, and they were discussing, going into the euro as opposed to the dollar or the yuan or so forth. He said, no, you have to stay in the dollar. He says the dollar is a universal currency. You got to keep that. Okay, but the difference is that the dollar has to be invested in the real economy. If you collapse the dollar value, then you create chaos. You have to transform the dollar into an instrument of credit rather than a monetary, and that's the question. And what he's advocating is that the Chinese take their dollars and invest them in developing U.S. infrastructure as part of the whole agreement between China and the U.S. on the trade talks. So that's the kind of thing that's being proposed. So this takes me back to the time of the Continentals when there were these massive $73 million worth of debt from the war. Some of it was even counterfeit debt. And people said, well, let's wipe it out. And Alexander Hamilton said, no, let's fund it and convert it into credit so that people can use this debt instrument as credit. And that's how this country got underway. And that worked. But Jefferson and later Madison tried to nullify it. But nonetheless, this is how, this is on a global scale what has to be done. Again, this worthless dollar has to be converted into valuable investments in development everywhere in the world, with the Chinese playing a key role. That's how it has to go. Now, is that what's being discussed between China and the United States right now in this trade agreement? I have no idea what's being discussed. And the trade talks go until March 1st. And they're supposed to come up with some agreement. But does that mean that Bolton and Pompeo, let's say there's an agreement, does that mean that they can continue saying China's the enemy, Russia's the enemy, we got to stop them, we got to stop them? And also there's another person that's playing a very key role in collusion with Bolton and Pompeo, and she is the foreign secretary of Canada. Her name is Chrystia Freeland. She was scheduled to write the authorized biography of George Soros, who was at Davos, by the way. And George Soros gave a curdling attack on Xi Jinping as the greatest threat to the open society. That is the president of China. And he lumped Xi Jinping, Putin, and Trump together as the greatest enemies to the open society. So this is the woman that was very close to Soros, who's going to write his biography. She goes on instead to become a member of Parliament in Canada and the foreign foreign secretary, and she is coordinating a lot of this stuff. Now, Canada historically has had this dual middle power relationship where they get between the United States and the Soviet Union in the past, and between the United States and China. In 1970, they were the ones that opened up China. And they played this sort of middle power. They were not, they never stopped recognizing Cuba or North Korea. They always played that kind of middle power, and they developed all these diplomatic, because that's how the British operate. They have the hardcore confrontation, and then they have the softcore middle in between. And so they work both ends. Well, they just dumped the entire 50 years of Canadian diplomacy when Wang Shu Ming, the CFO of Huawei, was detained in Vancouver for extradition. And today, the Justice Department issued 23 indictments against Huawei for spying, for bank fraud, for everything else. It's really bizarre charges. Also they made a formal request for her extradition. They would have run out of time next day. Now this is having an incredible impact in Canada, and what it means is they're moving to try to crush internationally the tech giants that are emerging out of China. Huawei is one of them. ZTE is another. And what's happening is China has caught up technologically and is now beginning to surpass the West technologically. And they will continue to surpass the West technologically because they are committed to technological progress. They're committed to a space program. The U.S. doesn't have a space program. Our NASA director is saying we have to work with China and Russia. We don't have a space program. They have a space program. We need to work with them. India has a space program. The U.S. is trying to, under Obama, pretty much shut down what we had left of a space program and decided that Elon Musk was more efficient than NASA. So welcome to Elon Musk land, and so forth and so on. So all of that is going on. So they have to stop China's. But how are they going to stop China? The only way you're going to really stop China if you launch a preemptive nuclear war against China and Russia. That's the only way you're going to stop them. But would they do that? Yes. People like Pompeo and Bolton would, if they could, launch a preemptive nuclear strike on China. And I say that these people are crazy. These people are nuts. They're rabid dogs. And is Trump using them as leverage to get a better deal with China? I don't know. But we're going to see pretty soon where it's going to go. It's going in that direction. That something's going to have to give. So we're in the most incredible period of history. We're in the most incredible of times, and we have the British Empire on steroids right now, deploying their military intelligence capabilities, which are massively embedded inside the U.S. institutions and our intelligence community. They're deploying all of their assets that they've built up since World War II to get this war going, to get this confrontation going with Russia and China, to convince the population that Russia and China is the enemy, to convince the population that China's bad, but at the same time, you have the release of all these documents that prove the role of the British Foreign Office and British military intelligence in mobilizing and organizing these clusters all over Europe and the United States and Canada that are at the center of the operations against Trump and center of the operations to demonize Russia and China. And if you haven't seen Barbara Boyd's 3-part series, you should go to the LaRouche PAC website and read it. It's the best roadmap to understanding everything from the Integrity Initiative to the operation being run against Trump. And of course, Trump has yet to declassify. He still has one ace in the hole one big bomb in the hole in his hand. Whenever that, at some point, he's going to have to do that. So it's going to be a very wild period that we're going into. All right, I'm going to bring up one matter that is dear to my heart. I went to see my sister in Mexico, in Baja California del Norte, and the population there is very supportive of the new president, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, and you really get the feeling that he cares. And boy, do they have problems in Mexico. And he has proposed to have everybody under a certain age have access to a stipend to go to school or go to work, so that they don't have to go around stealing gasoline and things like that. So he's also creating a 25,000 person National Guard of young people, kind of like FDR quality. He's also saying that all of these ideas come from the FDR and the Depression. He exudes a quality of humanity that I've not seen in any Mexican president. He speaks so slow. I've never seen a Mexican speak as slow as he does. So you don't get this kind of macho, Latin American macho kind of thing. He's very kind. He exhibits a really kind quality and a compassion. I was very impressed by watching him on TV. So I'm looking forward to better relations between the United States and Mexico. Of course, this situation in Venezuela is very problematic because Mexico will not endorse this coup. It's against their constitution, and they never have. They never sided with the U.S. against Castro, and they've never done that. So this is going to create tensions. This whole coup in Venezuela is going to create tension between Mexico and the U.S., which is not good. That's another byproduct of this whole thing, which is not good. But the Venezuelan thing is so blatant and in your face. There's no fig leaf. There's nothing. It's just like saying we no longer have a system of nations. We no longer have a system of law. It is basically, we no longer have a system of sovereignty. If we decide that so-and-so should not be the leader of a country, but somebody else should be the leader of a country, if we have the power to make it stick, then that's legitimate. That's the new rule of law. Legitimacy based upon power. So this is very naked. This is very ugly. This could lead to World War III. Not because that incident itself could lead to World War III, but if you start to operate that way, that if you have the power to do something, you can do it because you have the power to do something, then you're no longer in a realm of law. You're in a realm of war. And that's where we're headed into right now, unless something dramatically has changed. All right, we are gathered here across the street from the Federal Bureau of Investigation headquarters. We didn't want to get too close because they're kind of touchy. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is not really federal. It's not really a bureau, and it doesn't really investigate. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is a criminal entity acting on behalf of the Saudi British interest, acting on behalf of a global financial criminal structure. It is the enforcement arm. It is the spying arm. It is the blackmailing arm. It is the frame-up arm. It is the protector of terrorism in the United States. It has protected the culprits in 9/11. It protected the Sarnoff brothers in Boston, who bombed the Boston Marathon. It is the protector of Whitey Bulger, a killer very famous in this world. The FBI is here not to protect you, but to protect the drug trade, to protect the Wall Street criminals, to protect the criminal element of our society. And if you get in the way, or you politically try to change things, or you try to stop the criminality of the financial system, you're going to hear from the FBI. So today, we are gathered here in front of FBI headquarters, across the street from FBI headquarters. The FBI is not federal. It's run by a British, Saudi, Wall Street, London financial system. It has nothing to do with the interest of the United States. The FBI, the fumbling, bumbling idiots of the FBI should be dismantled. So we are gathered here in front of the FBI headquarters. The FBI, according to former Senator Bob Graham, who was the chair of the 9/11 Commission report, the FBI actively suppressed the evidence of Saudi involvement in 9/11, actively lied, not just covered up, but actively lied. And we are at a turning point in our nation because we have to change our nation. We have to change our society if we're going to survive. And part of doing that is to see to it that the 9/11, the 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission report reach the public, which is currently being classified. And if you do that, you will begin to unravel the criminal element that has been at the core of our destruction as a nation, which is the Federal Bureau of Investigation.